Let's give a warm welcome to Brian Smith.
I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life, and I remember I just heard a record, and I bought the album, and one day I was just flicking off the cover of the album, and it was my personal favorite. And the words of that song, the second song, were, "Tired of lying in the sunshine, staying home to watch the rain. You are young and life is long and there is time to kill today." And I went, my God, he's talking to me. And then it went on and said, "But then one day you find 10 years have got behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun." And I just got goosebumps all over me. And I thought, oh my God, all my friends are tracking off to partnerships in the accounting business, and other friends had started their businesses 10 years ago, and I was running on the spot. And so it was within 3 days, I was in the office of my friend who was a travel agent, and I decided that I was coming to California. I was going to find the next big thing that was going to come back to Australia. I was going to bring it back to Australia.
It was a joy to encounter him. You know how sometimes you meet people and there's just that instant genuineness that shows up, and that was Brian.
I looked at Doug and I said, "We have got to go into business, Doug. Everyone in Australia has these shoes and there's none in America." And so that's really how simple it was to find this great idea, was just by traveling and realizing there was something not back home. And here was the first year's sales of UGG, 28 pairs. But the thing you've got to realize here is that UGG has been $1 billion for the last 4 years. It could never have got there without this $1,000. And there's not a company on the stock exchange of the Wall Street Journal that didn't start with $1,000. So since I've come up with a theme that you can't give birth to adults. Every single business, every single movement, sandwich shop, religion, TV sitcom starts with someone conceiving it, and then the first action is taken. In my case, it was buying 6 pairs of samples. That's the birth. And then every business just goes into this horrible infancy, and it lies there, and it lies there, and you feed it, you change diapers, and you feed it. Now and again you'll get a giggle, but it's just feeding diapers. And there's no amount of jiggling the cradle or extra food or yelling at it. This infant cannot get up and go to college. It has to be an infant. But eventually it'll start toddling, which is cool for a business because the first customers are starting to take samples and the people are writing articles about you. And that's a really good stage, but it'll hit the youth pretty quickly when you've got consistent sales, consistent production, the accounting's flowing well, the sales force is perfect. That's the best phase for every single business, and if you can stay there, you'll have a pretty healthy, happy life. But if it's like UGG and it's a really cool idea or a really cool movement, it's going to hit the teenage years, and you've all been there, and you know how indestructible you are at that time. You want to be at every party in town, and you want to be everywhere there's action. And for me, it was like wanting to be at every trade show and every venue I could possibly show up at. And it's a really dangerous stage because you tend to overspend on things you don't really need. And so then eventually the accountants come in and put in the controls, and it becomes a mature business. During this period, you also have to have a certain level of ignorance to be an entrepreneur. Just like you have to be sort of ignorant before you have your first baby. Because if you knew what was ahead, maybe you wouldn't do it, When I got back to California, I was sort of perplexed on how to get this going, and I was having a beer with one of my buddies who owned South Coast Surf Shop, and I was telling him the problem, and he just asked, "Shut up, Brian." He calls out, "Hey, you guys, come out here." And all these little 13-year-old grommets come out, and he says, "Hey, you guys, what do you think of UGG?" "Oh, UGG boots, man, they're so fake. Have you seen their ads? Those models, they can't surf." And the light went on again. I was sending the wrong message to my target market. And I felt like such a failure because I couldn't get into the malls. They wouldn't even give me an appointment. And it wasn't until I was in Montgomery Ward's, which was a big shoe retailer back then in the malls, in their buying office in Chicago, and I made the best sales presentation ever. And the buyer just looked back at me and he goes, "Brian, why are you here?" I went, "Because I want to get an order for the California stores." He goes, "Don't you get it? We're the elephants. We don't move till the mice are running around under our feet." And I instantly got what he meant. Until I had all the specialty stores just going crazy, the malls were not going to take a risk. They only wanted to buy product that was just, they knew was going to sell. Stan and I were there writing orders, and so for 2 days we were swamped. In an hour, and I finally calculated all the invoices out, and I looked at Stan and I said, 96,000. So in one show, 2 days, we wrote more than 3 times our previous year's sales. That's how luck can work.
Brian was a real person. It was really refreshing to hear someone that has such a successful company, but just be so down to earth.
The company was Thunderwear in the windsurfing industry, and they'd decided to knock us off, and I'm wondering where the hell are they getting their product. And I found out when I went to the trade show in September, there in their booth is all of my boots with a different label on them. And my supplier had decided to abandon me, and I'm going, oh my God. We couldn't keep boots in our warehouse for like 15 minutes. They were gone. Thugs was stuck with a warehouse full of product, and my loyal customers, excuse me, refused to buy. So that was a great testament to the loyalty, the customer service that I'd spent many years developing.
I know one of my favorite parts is when he kind of choked up because he talked about his loyal customers. That, right there, that gives me goosebumps.
How many of you out there have had goosebumps? If you look around from the front, nearly everybody in the room put their hand up. Okay, what I believe this is that there's some intelligence out there, and it all has some sort of mission for our lives, all individually, and that when we do something that's in alignment with that vision, it sends a message to us. Now, if I was the perfectly spiritually aware person, it would probably be speaking to me in Australian, but I'm not. So its way to get to me is through this electrical system in my body, which is goosebumps. So I want you to all take notice of your goosebumps. The beauty of this is knowing it, that when bad things happen now, I sort of have this fatalistic attitude, like, oh, so what, bring it on, what's next, And it's amazing, by not getting emotionally dragged down by it, that you can actually use those moments to think, okay, I actually say, damn, that happened. Okay, what's good about it? And it's amazing how many times you can figure out a new direction that is better, that you would never have thought about had things just plotted on the way they were. It empowers you to take charge. Look, every one of those is an action item. It's not a poor me, I'm screwed, I can't do it, I can't react. Every one of these is invigorate in the presence of difficulties. Suddenly you're back in control, and you'll find ways to live your life this way. Okay, how do we do it? I was doing swap meets. If I went up to surfing at Malibu, I had a van. I had all the full-size run of inventory in the back of the van. I'd open it up, and after surfing, I'd sell boots out of the back of the van. Please believe that I've never looked back on a disaster and not thought that's the best thing that ever happened to me.
For the men to stand up and give him that wholehearted recognition, it's that role modeling thing I was talking about. The fact that he can stand up and be vulnerable is a great role model. You don't have to be this tough macho guy.
I was this 29-year-old kid, came to California, found an idea, fell in love with it, had passion. You could see how much tenacity I had to stick in through some of these things. For a kid coming from Australia and becoming a part of something that is so endemic in the folklore of America, it really made me feel that I belonged and I'd arrived, that I've had a fantastic journey.
I just sat there and was just in awe that this man was just being so transparent.
He lost the ownership of his business. He didn't quit. he continued on, and that inspired me to continue on in my business.
You're all going to be faced with incredible challenges. It doesn't matter if they're small company, medium company, big company. The challenges at the time for every person is huge. It says, in liaison with God or the universe or whoever you want to put in there, nothing, absolutely nothing is impossible.
He's coming from his heart when he's talking about what it's like to actually build a business.
Don't think of him as a motivational speaker. Think of him as an aspirational speaker, someone for us to aspire to, a path to follow.